Yeah, and I think now is a great time that we go into some of your projects. What I would like to listen from you is, do you have something big orchestral in this list?
Uh, I have something big orchestral, as in epic or as in a lot of orchestra?
As in, like, I think epic, like trailer music key.
Not really. I have something that actually is an interesting take on that. That sounds pretty big. Rage of the Mammoth from New World. It's not really Triller-esque, but
Okay, so that will be interesting.
Rage of the Mammoth.
Of the mammoth,
Yep.
the big woolly mammoth.
Exactly. There's a mammoth in that game. It's one of the bosses, and
Ah,
that's the theme I wrote for that character.
okay, interesting. Okay, that makes sense now. I was a little confused, but um, all right. Then let's listen to that. Crazy. That's amazing. How did you make the voices in the background?
So that is using samples, um, but I wanted to, when I'm using samples, I want to make sure that they sound to me like they can only come from me and not from anybody else who has the samples. So the idea here is that I was going to explore. So th this character is this mammoth who's got very conflicting views about a number of things and is enraged, as per the title,
Hmm.
and experiences like a lot of confusion alongside with that rage. And for me, there was this idea that I wanted to have this kind of unrelenting beat. You have that pulse that's always there. But on top of that, a variety of subdivisions, rhythmic subdivisions, and kind of painting by wider colors, like big chord progressions, things that would be like meandering and like add to the confusion. And all of that always settled by this super big pulse behind it. So I manipulated things in a way that we were going through all the chord changes, but using a bunch of different subdivisions, eighth note triplets, 16th notes, and then quintuplets. And then the music like shifts between all these things. And on top of that, you have a French horn melody double with synths that almost sounds like the voice of an elephant. Uh, and Yeah, I'd say it sounds pretty epic. It's not like trailer epic. It's not the
Yeah.
aesthetic of this thing, but um it does have a pretty big sound, and you can hear how all the layers come to play, and everybody's playing kind of in their lane with not a ton of things stepping on each other's toes. It's really meant that to have a lot of room to breathe here.
hmm What also impresses me in this one is the percussions, how they kind of work together, but they create an uneasiness and they work together, but somehow something in this track is conflicting also. So the world that's pretty much what's going on inside the mammoth is, I think, beautifully displayed through the music here. So very well done. Wow. All right, let's look into the next thing. And I would say that's Overwatch Season 2 or Overwatch 2. I've played for quite some seasons. I have a lot of time spent in Overwatch playing, but to contribute actually to the game, I think is it is amazing because there are so many people that enjoy this game. And
Hmm.
when you're in the title screen and you have the music, that's like it's already you're preparing basically mentally for the game for the next round. Maybe you got beaten up in the last round and you have the cool music while you wait for the next game, while you're waiting in queue. So I'm excited to see that. I didn't play season 2 of I think from Overwatch 2 because I just stopped playing all games altogether. But it is quite nostalgic, I have to say. What? Oh, 3 minutes 18. All right. What was your task or what information did you have for this composition?
So specifically, this one was a bit different from the rest of Overwatch. Overwatch has a very future positive, um, light electronics and orchestra blend to it.
Mm-hmm.
This was for season 5 of Overwatch 2, very much a high fantasy thing, with high fantasy skins and kind of had a medieval tinge to it. Now the overall message of the music, the overall thing about it is still very much the same. It's very positive. Um, but that's the yeah, that's the sound they were after for this particular project.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then let's look into it. Awesome. What instrument was on the last bit? It sounds like something that would be more prominent in Asia or something like over there.
It's actually a medieval instrument named psaltery.
Saltery.
Yeah, it's spelled Psaltery, and it can be bowed or it can be struck with mallets, and this is the struck version.
Oh, okay, I see. Interesting. Wow. And wait, I have to listen to that again. There's also a very high-pitched medieval instrument in the whole track, but I didn't figure it out. Wait a minute. Maybe it's the same actually. Yeah, I think it's the same instrument. And you also um put some flutes into the orchestration, right? Oh, I think in
Yep.
this part
Yeah, there's a few medieval flutes in there.
was I think for Overwatch I'd assume they have a budget for music. Um, this was a live recording, right?
No, it's all in the box.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't expect that. How many tracks did you load up with flutes? Just flutes?
I could I couldn't tell you. I think there's about I could hear about three just now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. I I didn't hear that that specific, but okay, incredible. And that was season 5, incredible. Do you have like in movies when you make music, compose something for series, whatever, there are oftentimes premieres, right? And you
Hmm.
get invited, or the actors get invited, and something like that. There's a lot of publicity, all these things. Is that also something with gaming music, with video game music, or were you some invited to a premiere once, or yeah?
Yeah, yeah. There's some releases where you're involved, or a lot of things these days like involve digital publicity of sorts, where you get a shout out from the devs or stuff like that. That's also very helpful.
Mhm.
Um, it is less of a compared to cinema, you're not sitting in a room with others playing video games in the same way you're going to the movies.
Yeah.
So it's mostly confined to people's homes. Um, Therefore, the that is a little different. But yeah, you do get there are certainly release parties for the projects that you're on, and then oftentimes there's little types of interviews that you can do sponsored by the devs, and that's always helpful. Behind the scenes, things of that nature.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Uh, did you work with together with someone on this project now, or do you oftentimes have collaborations when you make music, or are you working and you decide maybe if you have mixing, then you give it to someone else, but you are basically a solo show?
On this particular project, I worked by myself. Generally, I work by myself as the lead composer on the project. I'm a freelancer working, when Blizzard calls me. So they're the ones who are collaborating with me.
Mm.
Um, and my work here is to just make sure that the I fulfill what the client's desires are. There are some projects where I'm working currently on a pretty big project that's been split between myself and another composer, which is going to be a really exciting thing when it comes out. Um,
All right.
but that one is going to have, I don't know, about 5 hours of music total, so it's a pretty significant endeavor. Um, but it's fun.
Yeah. All right. And you've worked with Riot, and they have like uh Sebastian Nachan is principal composer, Noah Gladstone is score coordinator. Do they also have that at Blizzard, or is it how does that work?
Yeah, Blizzard, they do have some lead composers on their projects. Uh, so I know Adam Burgess was the lead composer on Overwatch 2 and was certainly um, the one giving me the project and managing it in terms of music direction. So it's definitely um, a lot of attention with that.
All right. All right. Then I'd say let's get into the next one. I love the name Aurora. Like if I ever have a baby girl, I always think Aurora is such a pretty name, even though it's like it kind of comes down to if you name your child Cherry or something, it's an object or and the Aurora, they're the Auroras, but I think that name is so beautiful as a girl's name. I don't know, I just love it. So that's what we'll get into next. What did you compose Aurora for?
That was a demo for a project, and then we recorded that live at a studio called United Recordings, which is a very old studio in which a lot of the guys doing Rat Pack music were recording. Um, so it's definitely got a very warm sound, and the instrumentation is reflective of that. We recorded with three woodwinds and some horns, I believe, and then a nice string section. I should send you the. I have a video actually of that recording session. I should send it to you.
Oh yeah, awesome. Okay, then let's have a listen. Interesting. This one was it was very warm, but I'm not sure the violin that was pitched so high. It's it's a good fit, but sometimes also when I make my own music, I'm thinking, oh, this is too harsh from the high frequencies. But that was really beautiful. I was thinking now that you gave me these tracks, it's and it's so cool what you have created. So I think I'll at some point I will try to recreate them and like reverse engineer to figure out how did you do it? How can I do it too? What kind of instruments did you from an entire orchestra did you leave out for this track?
There's a very specific size of woodwind ensembles. I think we had three players total, maybe one flute, one clarinet, one oboe, three French horns,
Mhm.
and um, and then a small-ish string section. I think there were like maybe 40 musicians total. So um, I had to work with the constraints of that and the constraints of the room too. Um, you want to be very conscious of where you're recording in and the size of the group so as to not get into any kind of trouble with overwhelming what that space is able to give you.
Mhm.
So that was a conscious decision. Kind of get a feel for where you're going to be recording, and I'm a big proponent of making sure that your space matches your the intention at the end of the day of what that project should sound like. If you're recording incredibly big music, you don't want to record that in a small studio. It just is not the
Yeah.
right space.
Yeah.
Um, and then that's not going to work. So when it comes to really epic music, a larger hall is always helpful for something that's somewhat contemplative and has a warm sound like the track we just listened to. That was absolutely an appropriate place to record.
Mhm. Okay, I want to repeat that middle part again. What is the this rhythm in the background that's very fast paced? It's like a pluck.
It's Synth. Yeah.
Ah, okay, so orchestra and synth working together in
Yep.
this.
Yep.
Yeah, amazing. And you're very cautious with the percussions that you use. I I have the tendency to really use a lot of percussion when I really get into the feeling of more energy, more rhythm, and but here it's very decent. What would be a tip, or how could I improve my percussion placement? When to use it, when to not use it, or to not make it as prominent, or make it a lot prominent. Do you have any tip that you could give? I mean, it's hard because you don't have an example of my composition or anything, but maybe.
I think you want to be careful with ear fatigue in general, and contrast is something that's really important. And if you listen to this piece, for instance, one of the things I think it does most successfully is introduce the percussion at the very end on that final accent, and you can even see it on the waveform.
Yeah,
And so that's not just true of percussion, but everything in general. Of carving out space for things to express themselves, for leaving room for surprises, and also finding ways to have motor elements that are not percussion and using the orchestra to drive things that need to be going forward without having necessarily percussion do that job. I'd
Hmm.
encourage you to listen to, although it's not really a very modern sound, listen to John Williams, for instance. Lots of Star Wars music relies upon percussion to get stuff going, but not always. And sometimes it's very minimal devices, but getting a sense for the balance of like when is there percussion and when is there no percussion,
Hmm.
and then what plays driving rhythms in the stead of percussion. That's something that that's really interesting and that he's amongst many things very, very good at.
All right. Yeah, I've heard the name so often now, even though I didn't do that many interviews. It just always comes up. He's like the father of cinematic music, if you can say.
One of them, yeah, he's one of the greatest.
Yeah, the League of Legends. I'm interested in it. Let's take a listen. Oh, this here the waveform looks a lot differently. So let's see how it plays out. with the swell in the ending. Incredible. In this piece, the choir was very prominent, especially like I think this one is solely choir,
Mhm.
and in the beginning, very rhythmic. I mean, I think the character is a killer and has a lot to do with guns, so that's probably your inspiration, right?
That's the sound of his guns that you're hearing that I turned into this beat.
Oh, so the sound that was used for the in-game shooting
It's
sound.
the stuff that, yep, all the hi-hats, it's all the mechanisms and stuff, the impacts, it's all like the bass, the snare, the bass drum, the snare, the kick drum, sorry, the snare, and yep.
Crazy, yeah. That's amazing. And okay, so I see that inspiration. And then the choir. What made you decide for a choir? And was there kind of a system to what you give the choir to sing? Or is it like feeling, okay, now an ah is good, or now an ooh, or
Oh,
whatever?
everything is very clearly spelled out. Even the design of the choir for this specific sound is something that I went with the ensemble I wanted. And I wanted maximum evenness in the distribution of singers, and I forget exactly how it went, but I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I had three altos, nine tenors, nine basses, and everything was divided amongst voices that were really or three altos, three tenors, six baritones, and nine basses. I think that's the way I went about it. So I would have almost perfect evenness in terms of voice distribution and power. Usually the orchestra tends to tip heavy towards the higher voices. Here, there's a lot of very dense horizontal writing, very, very
Yeah,
precise, a lot of clusters, and yet every voice, musical voice, not just the individual voices in the chorus, but you can really hear everything linearly, very, very clearly. So everything's spelled out in a very very clear way for them.
yeah. So in this case, you had the great opportunity to have a live orchestra. I mean, choir. Um,
Mhm.
if you have to leave a project in the box, but you want a choir, do you have a go-to library for choir or VST that you use?
So for a more for that type of voice, I would go for something like the Eric Whitacre choir from Spitfire.
Mhm.
For more epic stuff, I kind of like Metropolis Arc One from Orchestral Tools. I think this one sounds really good. Um, And then, there's just a bunch of stuff out there for different things. ADO's got some good choirs, Senior Samples that's got some good choirs. It's really finding out what works for that specific sound at that specific moment. But yeah, I'd say if you have Metropolis Arc One for their like really big choir stuff, and then for smaller sounds, using something like Spitfire's Eric Whitacre choir. It's a nice blend.
All right, that's good to know, especially for epic orchestral writing. I hear so many people on YouTube when I listen to epic versions of something. So often there's a choir, and I'm thinking like, the only choir I have uh is not like doesn't sound real. It sounds very digital, and yeah. So that's very good inspiration, and to look at what to look into when getting a new addition to in the door. Okay, I'd say one more, and then we are done.
Okay. Do you still want me to do the dogcast?
Oh, yes, please.
Let's try it now.
Sadly, we could not get the audio running on his workstation, but he made a dogcast for us, so that's going to be the fourth and final episode. So make sure to check it out, and I hope you enjoyed the episode.